try to summarize that protocol. It's got 8 points, but I just want to sort of hit the key points, if you will. First, one of the things we would like to do is pledge to notify the broader membership that we have received a notice from an agency that is terminating consultation, and that we would do that within 2 days of receiving that notice. The next important step that occurs in the process is the chairman sitting down with staff to determine how to develop the council's comments and which mechanism to use. And real quickly, the operating procedures have 3 mechanisms. One is to develop them for formal vote and adoption by all of the members. That's rarely, if ever, used. The more common process, the one that Chairman Donaldson referred to, was designating a panel, which a panel typically of 5 members that guides and oversees staff pretty directly and closely. And the last is the process we used in this case, and you might remember also with the Providence Viaduct just a couple years ago, where we convey comments via a chairman's letter. And that's again what happened here. And so these protocols are really about that chairman's letter process. But sort of getting back to that protocol, what we're proposing is that within 5 days of receiving that termination, we will have consulted the chairman and notify the members of the approach that's being used. In the case of a chairman's letter, we would notify the members within 5 days. That would also be an opportunity for members to then respond about whether there are any potential conflicts they might have in being involved in or reviewing or commenting on the action. And in this case, and it's often the case, we had a couple members that were recused. So that's always an issue. So then within 7 calendar days, we would open the opportunity to the public to comment. We typically do that through emails, through the website, through press releases. We would then pledge within 14 calendar days to get you all of the necessary background material to help you understand the context of the case, its history, and perhaps what sort of the key issues are, or the key issues were just prior to termination. We would also inform you of our efforts and intentions to carry out a site visit and hold a public meeting. And as I think you're aware, as Chairman Donaldson mentioned, while staff hosted that meeting for the Growler comment for a variety of fairly complicated reasons, timing, and others, our intention would be to always have the chairman, and if not the chairman, at least a member host that public meeting. We would then pledge to, within 30 days of the receipt of that termination, provide the members with a draft of the comment as well as a schedule for convening a teleconference, typically just a few days after that draft, so that the members can then get on the phone if they'd like. If not, they can certainly convey comments on that draft to us by email or calling us up directly. But we found that hosting a teleconference and inviting the broader membership to participate is often a good way for the members to not only convey their views, but hear other members' views and sort of understand what the broader sentiments are of the membership. And then after we have received that input and that the advice of the members, we would then work to finalize the comment, working closely with the chairman, and convey it to the federal agency by day 45. So that's sort of a quick run through of the protocol. It's not unlike the protocol we've used for other past chairman's letters, and I think it's in some ways not dissimilar to the protocol we use in developing program comments as well. But that's just sort of a quick run through. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Comments on the process? I mean, this is a development, just a brief trip down memory lane. As a former staff member, we used to spend 2 days on these, coming up with these comments. So this is certainly a streamlined approach. Yes, Rita.
I just, I'm nervous now. Press this button, it's going to do the whole rebrowsing thing so we can. But no, I wanted to compliment compliment you on that process. I thought that it was effective. It gave us an opportunity to include things in the chairman's comments, the chairman's letter, and so I really appreciated that opportunity for comment. And in some situations, you know, this doesn't need to take 10 years. You know, you can do the expedited process and still be able to include some effective comments and outreach to the board members. So give you a little ups on that one. Thank you.
Right.
I will echo the cool guy over there, Marino's comments. I did think the process went very well, and we were under some strict time guidelines, as we always are. I think what we do need to reflect on, and I would urge staff to reflect on this, is how the substantive comments themselves, how we determine what's in and what's out. And you know, as members, we're not involved in the day-to-day of the 106 consultation. We do not know what took place from the beginning of the consultation until the termination. And I will be honest, I didn't read all the material that was forwarded to us. I think there were, what, 400 pages or more of material. So I think that for our education, as well as for your development of the letter, because staff, to be honest, staff is the one who develops the format of the letter and much of what's in it. We review it. But I think that there needs to be some reflection on what's in and out, or what are topics that we can address and topics we can't address. And obviously that's not for a protocol here. This protocol, I think, is excellent, and I think you largely followed it with the Growler case. The other things are a little more difficult to deal with, but I think we should reflect on that and figure out what, on a more standardized basis, how to deal with some of those issues.
Any other comments?
I make one observation, in part in response to what you said, Brett. With the advent of a full-time chair, we're going to have our policy level leadership in the office on a daily basis. And so the chairman is going to be more intimately involved in the development of staff positions on controversial cases. So I think that's something that just could be a fairly dramatic change. And it also gets back to thinking about the role of the executive committee and the whole question of communication between the chairman and the membership.
Oh, I definitely agree. I think it'll change a lot, and it will also, for good and bad, change the role of the members as well. And that's why the communication with the members will be very important in developing these policy level positions.
Yeah, let me just finish that. When somebody does close consultation, there's a reason for it. And when we go out and either have a panel, or when you went ahead and went up to Washington, for the conference up there, and you have such a large constituency questioning one item, in this case happened to be the APE. I'm thinking that, maybe we should revisit that. Maybe something was missed in the process on how that was determined. But we also had controversial comments as well from several people saying one thing one way and then changing their mind and saying either maybe it was the sign of the times or they're under pressure with all of their friends around them or whatever. So it can get very complicated, but I'm thinking that maybe sometimes we should take a step back like you guys normally do when you're going through your consultation before we get involved in such thing as the chairman's comment letter on that, and really kind of question whether or not a particular agency or a SHPO or whoever else has done diligence in terms of looking at these. So,
Mr. Chairman, one question if I may, with respect to the
then Ryan, yeah.
letter. If my memory serves me correctly, perhaps on the same date that the letter was signed, by you on behalf of the council sent to the Secretary of the Navy that the letter or the thrust thereof was covered by the media. How does it happen? And then what is our response to the public when our letter is disclosed in terms of the consultation we're given to the proponent of an action?
Well, as you know, the press that came out was very favorable in our letter, not real favorable towards the Secretary of the Navy. And we had favorable comments from the shippo up in Washington as well.
But the question is, what are the mechanics of our disclosing the consultation letter to the media or to the public in general? Is that a practice that we follow? I mean, I have a problem with it, but I just want to know what is our public exposure when we do that, and whether that's in keeping with our practice.
Well, I believe it also goes on our website as well. I mean,
Okay, that's the question.
it's public information at that
Okay.
time.
Yeah, without going into the weeds on it, as soon as the letter is delivered to the agency head, because your comments, whether it's a chairman's letter or a panel comment or whatever, goes to the head of the agency. So in this case, it was the Secretary of the Navy. As soon as it goes to the agency head, we share it with the council membership. And then we use all of our media outlets to make the comment public. We send it to the consulting parties, is there anything else we do? Is there anything else we could do? I mean, it's you know, we make it as public as we can.
Very good, John, appreciate it.
First Terry and then Betsy.
I was participant on 2 of these termination cases where we actually went to the site and met with the public, so I just thought I'd make a couple comments about that. One was Pawtucket Dam and one was at Badger 2 Medicine in Browning, Montana, different circumstances. And Teresa, across the way here, she was also on the visit to the Blackfoot Indian ancestral lands. So just to say that it was a room not unlike this, except you're probably a little closer to the public, but the testimony from the community really would probably give you the other information if it were a situation such as determining that you had to take a break and review the APE. Because I think hearing different sides of the concerns, and that in one case, the person who wanted to do the drilling, they actually didn't testify, but they were in the room. But I think that whole context allows you the added amount of information if you needed to have, take a harder stand. And in fact, we were pressed to take that harder stand whether or not it was a situation where we were kind of running in between 2 federal agencies and having to help them determine what the next step forward was. So we understand that it was not the perfect storm of things happened, that we couldn't have the public meeting for this termination case. But with that, I think the public loses out. And I know that, you know, we're not going to extend the period to allow for that. And there was a government shutdown, et cetera. But I think there was a lot of benefit to the community when the advisory council showed up and they could see that we were present and that this process included them in a, you know, as a backup, face to face. We didn't just like, not that the issuing of this letter wasn't all solid, but I think that there was some benefit. And for the Browning case, I mean, yeah, we actually had to read the 400 pages because we're going to show up, and so many of the hundreds of pages was testimony that came in advance. So those people are really wanting to be heard. So just to say, I think that I think the process is really great, but to hopefully be able to include the public meeting.
All right, and I think that Kate and Reed did a really great job up in Washington. I mean, you guys really handled the crowd very well, and especially Kate in her normal fashion. So went very, very well.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out that Tom McCulloch was there with Kate, and I think they were a great team, and they had tremendous feedback from the public there. I also just want to acknowledge that we received a large body of feedback electronically as well. So our efforts to, through the media, inform people of the opportunity to comment resulted in a lot of things coming to us via email as well.
Betsy, did somebody have their hand up over here? Beth? Okay.
I just wanted to clarify, there was a public meeting.
Yeah, there was a public meeting, yes.
Right, it
Yeah.
didn't seem like, in Terry's comment, unless I misunderstood, that she was saying the benefit of the public meeting, and there wasn't one in this case, so I...
No, there was one in the Growler. In fact, it was very, very well attended.
Right.
We customarily, within this 45-day regulatory limit, we have a public meeting. The previous issue that we had, the Providence Viaduct, that you may recall getting the letter on, was not something where there was a lot of broad public interest, and was a fairly technical issue, really a procedural issue. And but the one thing that I would mention, which I really welcome in this protocol, is having a council member, if not the chair or the vice chair, a member be in the chair of the public meeting, so that it shows to the community that we made the commitment of involving our policy level leadership in hearing what the public has to say. And frankly, it gives the staff some cover too, by having somebody that's there who sits around the table who says, this is what I heard, this is where I think we should go with things.
Betsy?
The National Trust would like to echo the gratitude and the appreciation described by Brad and by Reno for the process of incorporating our comments, and we especially appreciate the chairman's responsiveness to the comments that were submitted. But I also wanted to mention an issue that was discussed in the committee, the Federal Agency Programs Committee yesterday, relating to the public hearing, and that is that you could often have a situation, and I think to some extent here this was the case, where you may have a consensus before the public meeting between the SHPO and the agency and the advisory council about issues like, is the area of potential effects okay? And then you may get pushback from the public who says it is not okay. So I feel like it's important for the council to be sure the agency is aware going into this that some of those previous handshake deals might need to be called into question as a result of being responsive to the public feedback. And also, I guess I'd like to say that over the years, the council's comments in these rare termination cases have often made an enormous difference and been extremely influential. And I'm thinking of cases like Cape Wind and the 710 Freeway, Badger 2 Medicine, the California gold mine. The council's comments are often very influential. Here, however, it's my understanding that the council has essentially received a letter back from the Secretary of Defense saying, thank you for your comments. We're going to go ahead and do what we were planning to do anyway. So I think it would be useful to think about how we want to handle situations like that.
Yeah, that was my earlier comment as well, Betsy, is that's the reason why we go out and meet with the public on these items. By the way, for the students, we talk a lot about acronyms and stuff. The APE, or the area of potential effect, is